If you're struggling with migraines, fatigue, insomnia, and here I'm talking about being dead tired at 7 at night or 8 at night, and then wide awake at 10 p.m., like cannot go to sleep, or waking up between 1 and 3 a.m. If you are so tired of urinary urgency, like just frustrated beyond the pits of despair, like don't even know where you're going to turn next because you have urinary urgency all the time. Like you've got this constant need to pee and it burns while you pee. If you're struggling with infertility, you are in the right place. I'm Brandy Searcy, and when I stopped hormonal birth control, I dealt with this onslaught of symptoms that I'd never experienced before. For me, chronic UTI, so that urinary urgency and burning while peeing was like here. I mean, it was so bad, I couldn't think about anything else because every second of every day, I was thinking about how much I had to pee. I couldn't fall asleep at night because I was worried about peeing on the bed. Okay. And then tie that in with the fact that I was also struggling with insomnia for the first time ever, like first time in my life. I used to be the one that I could sleep through anything. There could be a jet plane landing in the backyard. Fine by me, I'd sleep right through it. Not anymore. But I was also struggling with this extreme fatigue. Like I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. It was like 6:30 rolls around, the alarm goes off. It's like, dang, I was finally actually asleep. But I wasn't even tired at 11 p.m. the night before, exhausted at 4, not at 11. What gives? I was also struggling with period problems. I mean, I was not trying to get pregnant at this time, but I was struggling with period problems to the point where if I'd been wanting to get pregnant, there's no way I could have because I had like polycystic ovarian syndrome going on. So my period completely out of whack for the first time ever. And I mean, I'd stopped hormonal birth control before and never had any of these problems. I was also started experiencing migraines, and I am not one to get like before this, like before I stopped hormonal birth control, I was not one to get headaches very regularly. And all of a sudden, it was every few days, I had a freaking migraine. And it was intense. I mean, I still dragged my butt to work, still made myself go through the process, but we are talking extreme to the point where my eye was watering, like debilitating migraines to the point where when Brandy made herself do stuff with these migraines, she was paying for it later in the day. And then on those days, I knew why I was fatigued at 4 in the afternoon. So I had all of these onslaught of symptoms at once, in addition to weight gain. And again, the thing that was occupying 99.9% of my brain space, of like my space to think and my daily thoughts, was this freaking urinary urgency. And so I did what anybody would do in these situations, and you have probably done too if you're experiencing any of these, and that is seek help from a doctor. Now, for me, I started out with Western medicine. I was raised in Western medicine. I am a pharmaceutical research scientist. Like, that's kind of what you do. You get sick, you go to see the doctor. You have some weird health symptoms, you go to see the doctor. So I went to see the doctor, and they're like, well, yep, sure enough, you've got a UTI. You've got, your standard urine culture is positive. Here's some antibiotics. Those antibiotics helped with the UTI symptoms until I completed that round of antibiotics, and then symptoms flared back up. So it was like before I could even refocus on all of the other things that I had going on, I was quagmired back in this urinary urgency, this burning while peeing, cloudy pee, and weird smelling pee. And somehow, like, once again, because I am a pharmaceutical research scientist, and as a research scientist, like there's a set of things, like when you start researching anything, you ask the question why over and over and over again. So you dig, you pick up your little shovel, which is your research tool, and you start digging and you lay that shovelful over to the side and you're like, huh, okay, this is an interesting answer. Why is this? You dig another shovelful, and eventually you dig enough and you hit the treasure box. So I, because I gave my power away, I chose to give my power away to professionals that should have known what was going on with me. I continued to set my tools aside and trust in my resources at hand, which was again for me, doctors. When I started a few months in, I started getting really sick of getting the same answers and experiencing the same set of symptoms over and over again, getting a little bit of relief when I take antibiotics, and then only to relapse back into symptoms when I finished that course of antibiotics. And so I was in this vicious cycle where once again, everything had spiraled out of control. I was so focused on the UTIs, I couldn't think about anything else. And over the course of the next 18 months, what happened was I saw traditional Western medicine practitioners, starting out with general practitioners, was referred to specialists, referred to urologist. I started seeing traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, this guy that was renowned for helping people with weird symptoms. So I went to him. I was like, hey, I've got a laundry list of weird symptoms. Help me. Started seeing that guy. Started working with an Ayurvedic practitioner. And all of this isn't necessarily in this order. Let me just throw that out there. I actually met with several Ayurvedic practitioners over the course of about, 3 years to dig into the symptoms. I started working with a functional medicine practitioner. Like I wasn't getting any help, any real relief through any of these other routes. So started working with a functional medicine practitioner. Maybe they knew something. She was talking a lot about a root cause. I was like, well, I kind of think that's it. Like I think there's something underlying all of this. There's something at the root of all of these symptoms that I started experiencing overnight when I stopped hormonal birth control. It's almost like my body did something to throw me into this position where now I'm experiencing all of this. Like, surely they're linked. So I was thinking, maybe she might know why all of these are linked. I spent thousands of dollars with that practitioner. No less than 50 supplements showed up in the bill. I kid you not. No less than 50 supplements showed up in the mail. Like, I was like, well, I guess I'm setting this big ass box upstairs in my closet and pulling these out as I need them, because otherwise there's not room for them in my normal supplements cabinet. There's just not. They're going to fall out and hit me in the head. And this is so many. Like I'd taken a Sharpie and marked on each one when I needed it to make it easier to sort through the whole menagerie. Needless to say, 6 months later, I was still struggling with all those same set of symptoms, having found no inkling of relief. And as a matter of fact, some of those supplements actually made things a lot worse. It catapulted so the period problems I was having, it kind of cranked those up to about an 11 or a 12 on a 10-point scale. So, anyways, that was not the solution. I then started seeing a naturopath. Maybe, here's where I'm going to back up and step and say, I also have an autoimmune condition. It predated that stopping hormonal birth control. I started seeing this naturopath because I was like, something's got to give. Maybe if I try to move my focus over to the autoimmune, maybe I'll get some relief on this other stuff. So started seeing a naturopath for the autoimmune condition. And instead of helping, this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. So that naturopath, her response was, okay, you've got this autoimmune thyroid condition. You've been taking these uh, bioidentical hormones for a while now because your body's unable to make enough thyroid hormone on its own. So you've been placed on these by, another doctor. What I'm going to do is titrate you off these. your body can't produce enough of them anyway. Let's go ahead and titrate you off. Well, things got really, like, I thought I'd had symptoms before. Things got really, really bad when I started titrating off. Because not only was I experiencing all of those symptoms that I'd been experiencing before, all of a sudden I was dealing with hot flashes. Hot flashes. Like hot flashes. I mean, I'm 40 and I was waking up in the middle of the freaking night, kicking the covers off because I'm dealing with hot flashes and I couldn't drag myself out of bed in the morning. It had taken that and made it so much worse where I really couldn't get out of bed in the morning because she was titrating me off my thyroid medicine. And the fatigue got worse and I started having it almost felt like I was in a straitjacket. So my muscles started getting really, really, really tight where they were super uncomfortable. And it was no amount of stretching, no amount of massage therapy, no amount of any of the tools that I'd turned to before to help with that were helping with that. And so at that point, I was like, huh, hmm, this isn't right. And then on the UTI front, what was going on was the practitioner that I was seeing for the UTIs, which I was now chasing embedded UTIs. So these are micro infections because those standard urine cultures started coming back negative, and we had to get more serious and more tuned in to how we were even detecting any kind of infection with the UTI. I was sending my pee off to labs so they could amplify the DNA and the RNA in it and actually match those DNA strands to different bacteria. And then that's how my practitioner was prescribing me antibiotics. And when she handed me a prescription for a 28-day supply of antibiotics so powerful, I was pretty sure I'd be dead before that month was up. That's when I finally heard that little voice inside, intuition, speak. And it said very clearly, Brandy, you realize you're practicing the definition of insanity, right? You're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You have to do something different if you want out of this. And that was when I drew a line in the sand and said, yeah, no more. I am now stepping over this line. I am making a decision to do something different. I am going to figure out what is going on with my health. I am a research scientist. I have the tools to do this. And so I got serious and started digging down into the research. And making that decision, I wholeheartedly believe the universe smiled on me and said, hey, I'm going to throw you a bone. I'm going to give you the piece that you've been searching for this whole time. I'm going to drop it right into your lap. And that's ultimately what happened. Within 1 week of me making that decision to figure out what was at the root, like what was really causing all of these symptoms, all of these myriad of like truly debilitating symptoms. In the midst of that, the universe handed me a key, and it came in the form of my morning urine hormone monitoring. So that particular cycle, I finally saw a cycle for the first time that was consistent, like truly consistent with PCOS. I'd been struggling with low estrogen. I'd been struggling with short cycles. I'd been struggling with basically lots of different things like anovulatory cycles where you don't actually ovulate. But PCOS, this was the first time that a classic PCOS cycle showed up on my morning urinary hormone monitor. And with that, I was like, oh, I'm struggling with insulin resistance. My body, so when I stopped hormonal birth control, what I did unknowingly at the time was I took away this crutch that my body had become so used to. So, hormonal birth control consists, depending on which one you're on, consists of two synthetic hormones. These mimic what natural estrogen and natural progesterone do within the body. Now, both estrogen and progesterone are so important for all other hormones. And this was the thing I didn't realize. Estrogen and progesterone both play a role in how your body is able to use thyroid hormone. And me having an autoimmune thyroid condition, and I was already struggling to meet the body's needs for making thyroid hormone. When I stopped hormonal birth control, what happened is my levels, my reserve of thyroid hormone tanked. It cratered, and I didn't know it. And so everything that I did from the time that I stopped hormonal birth control until I took the reins and said, I'm going to figure out what's going on, everything I did, every decision I made that crater even deeper. It was like a meteor hit, made a huge crater, and then right after there's an earthquake that just deepened it. And then right after torrential downpour that just like broke it open and made it even deeper. And all of a sudden I'm dealing with something as deep as the Mariana Trench, the deepest spot on the whole planet. And I've got to dig myself out of that. And so the piece, like you're like, well, I thought you said it was insulin resistance. Well, it is, because thyroid, insulin, and a third hormone, cortisol, form a triad of the key three metabolic hormones that dictate metabolism within your body. And when you do not, basically, metabolism is just a fancy word for how well your body transforms the food you eat into energy. When you are struggling with that energy conversion process, when your body struggles to meet energy demands in the way that is optimal for you, because each one of us has a very distinct ratio of like a very distinct ratio of how we prefer, how our bodies prefer to meet its energy demands, whether from fats, carbohydrates, or protein. And when it is off and your body is not able to meet energy demands in the way that it prefers to meet energy demands, you wind up in metabolic crisis. And every symptom points to metabolic crisis, which means every symptom is caused by an imbalance in the three key metabolic hormones, thyroid, insulin, and cortisol. So when I recognized insulin resistance, which again, PCOS, a leading cause of PCOS is insulin resistance. When I recognized that connection, when I saw PCOS show up, knowing what I know already about PCOS, I was like, I've got insulin resistance. I incorporated changes into my diet and lifestyle immediately. And overnight, I got relief from UTI symptoms. Now, it took a few weeks for all of the symptoms to fully resolve, but it was night and day difference just in overnight between the level and the degree to which I was experiencing symptoms. And then as I continued to focus on that insulin resistance piece, not knowing about the thyroid yet, like I hadn't made that connection yet, just focusing on the insulin resistance, what I was noticing is all of a sudden I was less fatigued and I was less I was starting to experience less migraines, which was welcome, a welcome relief. And a lot of other things were starting to shift as well. I was still dealing with the hot flashes, was still dealing with the insomnia. That would take a few more months. That would take full on breaking up with a naturopath, and digging deeper and quite honestly piecing together other parts of this. Now, on the other side of having pieced all of that together, I am largely symptom free. I feel better than I felt in years, honestly. And I am helping other women break free. I've helped countless women break free from chronic UTI. I've helped women who are struggling with crazy symptoms, like off the wall, seemingly unrelated symptoms, high blood pressure being one of them, when they're also dealing with fatigue, migraine, and infertility. I've helped those women reclaim their life, help those women experience less migraines, experience less fatigue, begin to repair their metabolism and function at a higher energy level. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms and you are at your wits' end, you feel like you have tried everything, my invitation to you is to book a rapid relief call with me. In this session, we'll identify what's really causing your symptoms, and we'll discuss ways that you're able to tackle those symptoms and get relief. The link to book a rapid relief call with me is below, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.